Namaste, Swagatam. There are 30 million people of Indian origin spread across 189 countries today, from Mauritius, Fiji, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, to Malaysia, Japan, Brazil, and of course, US, UK, Europe, and Australia. How does this diaspora connect with Bharat and how do they keep the emotional bonds alive? What are the challenges and how has each community circumvented it? Let us speak with Shri Salesh Kumarji to know more about diaspora Hindus in Fiji. Shri Salesh Kumarji is a highly accomplished language and culture consultant in Fiji with over 2 decades of experience in education. He currently serves as the principal consultant at Language Consultancy Services. He has held academic appointments at the University of South Pacific, the University of Fiji, and Pacific Regional Seminary. An award winning educator and prolific scholar, he has received the Inspirational Educator Award at the 2023 International School Awards in Bangkok. He has also written 2 Hindi textbooks approved by Fiji's Ministry of Education. About Fiji, it is a picturesque island nation located in the South Pacific Ocean, about 2,000 kilometers northeast of New Zealand, comprising over 330 islands, of which 110 are permanently inhabited. Its two largest islands, Viti Levu and Vanuatu, are home to the most of the population, with Suva, the capital, located in Viti Levu. Fiji is a vibrant melting pot of indigenous Fijians and Indo-Fijians, the descendants of Indian indentured laborers who constitute approximately 34% of the population today, and other ethnic communities. Namaste, Shailesh ji. Swagatam. We have some questions for you, and thank you for making time.
Namaste, Kavita ji.
Namaste ji. So to get on with it, about the origins, the Fijian history and identity and early settlement, I have a few questions. What I know is that early Fijian, the native Fijians, are described as skilled warriors and master builders of seafaring vessels. And they also made a bark cloth, very prized and valued by the Tongans. And it was originally called Viti, not Fiji. But later the name became Fiji. Apparently, Captain Cook called it Fiji, and that stuck. And there's been a lot of colonization on the island, Christian missionary work, of course, which disrupted the traditional belief systems, customs, marriage, death rituals, etc. So, if you can just give us a brief history from your point of view, and also the cultural upheaval and the trauma, perhaps, that has been a part of the Fijians and the island.
Thank you, Kavita ji, for the question. Yeah, so early Fiji, long before colonialism and indenture, was a thriving archipelago inhabited by the Itoke. So the indigenous Fijians are known as Itoke, whose culture was complex, vibrant, and deeply rooted in the environment and social structures. The Itoke, or the native Fijians, are the original inhabitants of the Fijian Islands, known for their strength, craftsmanship, and deep cultural roots. Historically, they were skilled warriors, as you have said in your question, who upheld tribal honor and protected their land in the local language, which is called Vanua. So Vanua basically means land. And intertribal warfare was common with warriors. They were trained from a very young age in weapons like the clubs and spears. And the Fijians' military strategies were quite advanced, often involving alliances through diplomacy or political marriages. Yes, they were expert seafarers. As the Itoke, they crafted a large double-hulled canoes known as the drua in the Fijian language. And they basically used natural materials like coconut fiber, rope, and breadfruit wood, so entirely without metal tools. And these vessels, capable of long voyages, were sometimes gifted to Tongan and Samoan nobility. These are the other two South Pacific island nations, which basically showcases Fiji's maritime skill and regional influence. In terms of cultural artistry, this is another hallmark of the Itoke heritage, particularly the production of masi, we call it in the local language, or tapa. This is basically a bark cloth made from the mulberry tree. And this is used in clothing, bedding, and ceremonies. And this is normally adorned with symbolic designs and natural dyes. And let me tell you, then, this is highly prized across the Pacific, especially by the Fijians and the Tongans. And very, very quickly, the Fijian society was deeply spiritual, and hierarchical, and they are governed by the chiefs, who both hold a political and sacred authority. So their worldview centered around the vanua, or the land, as you say, a concept that is intertwining people, the land, and the spirit. So daily life is basically guided by the oral histories, rituals, reinforcing the communal respect and environmental stewardship.
So beautiful. Thank you for that. And one would love to be a part of that culture and know more about it from what you're telling us. But then something happened in 1879, 14th of May. 463 indentured laborers, called Girmityas from the word agreement, arrived in Fiji. And they're the first of the 61,000 of them, apparently, who came till the end of that whole Girmitya system, which was in 1916. So I was wondering, could you tell us what kind of work did they do when they came first to the Pacific, and then over time, how did they adjust to the very, very different, I'm sure, the circumstances, and it must have been very harrowing, their journey. And from what I know, because you have Fiji Hindi and Fiji Bath, which is the language, a mix of Awadhi and Bhojpuri, most of them would have been from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. But seems like there were also communities from the south, Tamil Nadu and Andhra.
Yes, Kavita ji. So let me tell you a brief about the Girmitya history. So the Indian laborers arrived here on 14th May 1879, and the first ship that brought them here was Leonidas, that arrived in Fiji with 463 Indian indentured laborers, that marked the beginning of the Girmit era. And this is a very pivotal moment in both Fijian and Indian diasporic history. So over the next 40 years, starting 1879, more than 61,000 Indians were brought to Fiji under the indenture system to work on colonial plantations, fundamentally to reshape Fiji's cultural and economic landscape. And the British already had experience with Indian laborers in South Africa, Suriname, Mauritius, Trinidad. So they found the Indian laborers to be the hardworking group. Therefore, they were introduced into Fiji. So they were commonly known as the Girmityas, bound by 5-year contracts, or Girmits, primarily to work in the sugarcane plantations, performing physically demanding tasks like planting, cutting, weeding, and harvesting. So sugar industry was the main reason why the indentured laborers were introduced to Fiji. And beyond sugarcane, many were assigned to coconut, or copra, as commonly known, copra plantations. So my family history is not sugar. It is
Okay.
my great grandparents were sent to copra plantations. So
Oh,
my history is connected to coconut. But nonetheless, primarily they came for sugar plantations, but some were also sent to banana and rice plantations, while others contributed to building infrastructure, clearing roads, constructing bridges, rail lines, and erecting colonial facilities. And a small number did contribute in terms of, being cooks, gardeners, blacksmiths, carpenters, tailors, and women, which comprised about 25% of the indentured population, often work in the fields or performed household tasks. So the life of Girmityas was basically marked by exploitation and hardship. They lived in overcrowded barracks with poor sanitation, worked long hours in extreme conditions, and were subject to strict, often brutal disciplinary measures. Wages were minimal because when they were in India, they were promised, a very good life here in Fiji. But when they came, they found the situation to be the opposite, and they were basically given basic necessities like food, and they were fully controlled by the British overseers. But despite these adversities, what I can say is that the Girmityas displayed immense resilience. So they preserved their languages, they preserved their religions, music, customs. So it laid the cultural foundation for the Indo-Fijian community today. So we were not basically laborers. I could say that we were pioneers and we were nation builders, because our endurance, our sacrifices, and the spirit continue to shape the social and cultural fabric of modern Fiji that we enjoy today. And to let you know, Fiji now, we have a national public holiday which is called the Girmit Day. So that
oh,
celebrates the contributions of the Girmityas. So this was introduced by the new government when it came into power in 2022. when Girmi Day was reintroduced as a national public holiday to celebrate the immense contribution that was made by the Girmityas in this country.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know, Salesh ji. And I apologize for saying indentured laborers. And we should change the terminology, because obviously you were pioneers. And if we don't call people who went to the US as, refugees or fleeing, or laborers, because they're also called pioneers, even though they displace the native population. So here we should definitely use pioneers, because they were brought for some particular work, and it was a pioneering work that the people did. And it was mostly from the northern parts, would you say, from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar area, the United
Yes. So
Province?
yeah, so let me briefly talk about the language that we speak here. So Fiji Hindi, or Fiji Bhat, which is commonly known, emerged during the Girmit era between 1879 to 1916, when the indentured laborers came. So most were recruited from eastern Uttar Pradesh and western Bihar, where dialects like Awadhi and Bhojpuri were widely spoken. So these dialects became the foundation of Fiji Hindi, which developed as a diasporic contact language, because all the Girmityas spoke the different regional dialects. So it was very difficult for them to communicate. So Fiji Hindi became more practical, adaptive, and resilient. So it became a contact language, so that the Girmityas could communicate with each other. So to
Wow.
accommodate speakers from the diverse linguistic backgrounds, Fiji Hindi, what it actually did, it borrowed the vocabulary and syntax from Bhojpuri and Avdi. So you will see a very huge influence in Fiji Hindi. Then we also had loan words from Fijian, which is the indigenous language. And also Fiji Hindi has heavily borrowed from English. So, any foreigner would be able to get the gist of the conversation, because every second or third word in modern, Fiji Hindi is borrowed from the English language. It had a more simplified grammar as opposed to standard Hindi, because we wanted to make it accessible across plantation communities. And Fiji Hindi was also used by the British overseers as well as the indigenous communities to communicate with the Girmityas. So this dialect, there's normally debate about it being a standardized form, but Fiji Hindi wasn't standardized, but yes, it is used for daily interactions. And majority of the present day Fiji Indians, whether they are here in Fiji or outside Fiji, they use Fiji Hindi to communicate. And there was some influence from the South Indian speakers as well, because out of the so many Girmityas, I would say about 25 to 30% also came from South India. So you would see linguistically their language could also be seen into Fiji Hindi. So Fiji
So you
Hindi
have some
today,
Tamil and Telugu words also, perhaps.
yes, yes. So Fiji
Okay.
Hindi is definitely the dominant spoken language among Indo-Fijians in everyday life. But for formal occasions, for religious events, standard Hindi remains important.
Okay, thank you so much. But while all this was happening, and like you said, the Gurmit Day just came about in 2022 or 2023, could you tell us a little about A.D. Patel ji and the role he played in advocating for the rights of the Indo-Fijians in the early days in challenging the colonial policies?
Yeah, Ambalal Dayabhai Patel, and now popularly known as A.D. Patel, remains one of Fiji's most influential political figures. He was a visionary who shaped the country's path toward democracy and equality. He was actually born in Gujarat, India in 1905, and Patel studied law in New Zealand and London before he migrated to Fiji in the 1920s. So, deeply inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's ideals of nonviolence, nationalism, and justice, Patel became a leading voice for Indo-Fijian rights and civil liberties during the colonial era. So he basically, played a very key role in Fiji's political system. He campaigned for democratic reforms. He also founded the National Federation Party in 1963, the principal political platform for Indo-Fijians in this country. So he demanded universal, rights for the Indo-Fijians here, a common electoral roll, a multiracial democratic structure that would treat all Fijians as equal citizens, irregardless of ethnicity. And beyond politics, for me, Patel was a champion for Indo-Fijian cane farmers, particularly because he led the fight for fair prices, improved working conditions, access to land. So he often, confronted the colonial administrators, and he highlighted, the injustices that were done to the Indo-Fijians. So he was quite popular, as I've said. He played a very pivotal role in Fiji's journey to independence, actively participating in constitutional negotiations that paved the way for self-governance. So his vision was of a united, non-racial Fiji, where Indo-Fijians, the Ethokes, the indigenous Fijians, the Europeans, and other communities that coexist in this country, that they live in equality and harmony. So he, I would say, laid the foundation for the country's early democratic institutions. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1969, just before Fiji gained independence in the year 1970. But nonetheless, I.D. Patel is still remembered because, as I've said, he founded the principal, political party, the National Federation Party, which is part of the present coalition government.
Thank you for that. And it is wonderful to know about such a person who's so selfless and a patriot of the land that took up as home. But coming to the personal aspect, to your childhood, how was it growing up Hindu in Fiji? Could you share a few memories and also any experience if you've had of lingering emotions or questions about identity, belonging, or separation from your ancestral land? And if so, how did you or how would you reconcile with something like that?
Thank you. That's an interesting question. So, growing up Hindu in Fiji was a unique and heartfelt experience, blending Indian spiritual traditions with the rhythm of the island life that we enjoy here in Fiji. So, for many Indo-Fijians like me, childhood was shaped by ancestral rituals, communal festivals, and the gentle guidance of the elders who passed on stories, prayers, and practices that kept the essence of Bharat alive here in Fiji. So festivals like Diwali and Ram Navami were at the heart of this cultural life. And Diwali, which is enjoyed as a national festival in this country, brings excitement and devotion, where homes are cleaned. I remember even during my childhood, sweets were prepared and clay diyas were lit in the night in a celebration to symbolize the endurance of the Hindu identity in this country. During Ram Navami, the 9-day festival, the entire villages came together in evening gatherings, reading the Ramcharitmanas, singing bhajans, and feeling spiritually connected through, harmonium, the dholak, tabla, the diyas, etc. So even the children now, you will see, they recite verses from the Sundarkand as a mark of pride. And Hanuman Chalisa is also gaining prominence. You will see a number of manlis and youth groups who are, reciting the Hanuman Chalisa throughout the country. So daily life, I would say, was enriched through rituals as a Hindu and traditions that were principally led by the elders in the community, from lighting the morning diya to observing fast and offering meal to Lord Shiva on Monday, for example. So children for here in Fiji, Hindu children, so we did not learn devotion through textbooks, but we lived it through daily practice. So even without understanding every Sanskrit word, because we were not very much familiar with standard Hindi, except those who could do it. I mean, study in school. But most of us, did not understand the Sanskrit word, but we felt the sacredness of the heritage that we had, brought from India. So I would like to acknowledge the contributions of the bhajan mandalis, the Ramayan mandalis. They played a key role in fostering community and culture. So weekends were filled with music, devotion, and intergenerational bonding. Just recently, we have celebrated Hanuman Jayanti, we have celebrated Holi and Ram Navami. So the festivals, basically transform the entire community, especially the vibrant festival of Holi. So they are vibrant celebrations of color, laughter, and song through Fagit, Fagwa. We share meals and we have joyful play. So more than just ceremonies, Hindu life in Fiji is instilled with core values of ahimsa, karma, dharma, and deep respect for elders. So for seniority for us is very, very important. The respect for guests and elders, is paid equal importance. And temples for us, they served as cultural anchors where, Indo-Fijian children learned who they were and where they came from.
Hmm. So that is what I was getting to. First of all, so beautiful to hear how you've preserved the culture, Salesh ji. And in some ways, perhaps you've done it in a better way than what you would see when you come to India. And we'll come to that question: how did you find India, etc. But before that, how did the Hindu diaspora preserve its civilizational and cultural memory? You've said it is through festivals and temples. So the temples, even now, do they hold that value? Do the youngsters go to the temples as much? And do they the temples perform all the samskaras, all the rituals of the Hindus? What are the commonly performed rituals apart from festivals? Is it a place where you did say that we didn't learn it from textbooks but more from practicing, learning from elders? But what of the different samskaras of a Hindu life? Are they a part of the Fijian Hindu life today? And where are the youngsters with respect to that? Do they follow all these customs?
I would say, there is, the youngsters have reawakened. We could see them, moving towards the Western values. But as I've said, now they are coming back, and most of the youth groups are now involved in singing of the Hanuman Chalisa. And Ram Navami. So Ram Navami, for Fiji, Ram Navami and Diwali are the two most celebrated festivals. The only issue I have with the youngsters is that they are moving away from the Hindi language. And
Oh,
you know how language is connected deeply with culture,
absolutely.
the rich heritage that we have. So unfortunately, most of the young children now do not take up Hindi as a subject in primary and secondary schools, because we see they are more into computing and sciences and commerce subjects. So I would say, we need to see how we can bring back and see that our youngsters are learning their languages, because once they lose the language completely, they have the gist of the language. They are able to converse using Fiji Hindi on a daily basis. But when it comes to reading and writing, that is where we really need to see, how we can, promote the language amongst the young community. And in terms of the temples that you have just mentioned, the establishment of the Hindu temples in Fiji, for me, is a powerful story of devotion, endurance, and collective effort. So when the Girmityas first arrived in 1879, they brought with them deep spiritual traditions, but they lacked the formal infrastructure for worship, because they did not have those means. So despite limited resources, they practiced Hinduism in makeshift spaces. So whenever they had time, in the veranda, or in village gatherings, or in humble shrines that they would, just, make do with whatever they had. Or they would have like the Tulsi plant, or they had the Ramayana, the hand copied Ramayans with them. So they would gather on a weekly basis, after they have toiled the land for the 6 days. On the seventh day, all the Girmityas, the children and wives, would gather together and talk about their homeland. They'll talk about their culture. They talk about the Ramayana. So Lord Rama is very much connected to the daily life of the Hindus in this country. So through community fundraising over time, voluntary labor, and dedication, Indo-Fijians have now gradually built permanent temples. So organizations such as the Shri Sanatan Dharam Pratinidhi Sabha, which is primarily for the North Indians in this country, and the TISI Sangam, which is for the South Indian traditions, they played a very key role in managing temple activities and preserving rituals. Today, Hindu temples are found. If you are going to travel around Fiji, you'll find a Hindu temple in every rural village, to every city that you will visit. So they serve as a spiritual sanctuary and community center. We had a shortage of priests. Many rituals were, in the early days, were conducted by elders who knew some Hindi. But over time, trained Hindu priests came from India. Even today, we see some temples, the South Indian temples, especially, or some North Indian temples, have brought priests from India who are, performing pujas, the yaj, sanskars such as weddings, and the Antyeshti Kriya, the last rites. So, the Tamil temples, the South Indian temples, they maintain the South Indian rituals. So fireworking ceremony is very much part of, the annual calendar of the South Indian temples in this country. Going back to the rituals that you had asked, so not all the 16 Hindu sanskars are commonly observed. And I think that you will see worldwide, it's not only Fiji. So only the major rites of passage, such as the birth rituals, or the sacred thread ceremony, or the head shaving, the mundan sanskar, the marriage sanskar, the vivaha sanskar, or the funeral rites, the antyeshti sanskar is done. So they remain integral to the Indo-Fijian life. But other, rites such as the ear piercing is not common. The Vedic initiation is not common out of the 16 solar sanskars. So you will see there is a general, shift from all of these solar sanskar, and we are now basically with the 3 or 4 major ones. But nonetheless, the underlying spirit of dharma continues through these adapted rituals, shared values, and through community involvement.
Thank you so much for Fijians to be able to keep it alive in a land so far away for so many generations. It's a great debt that we owe Fijians for keeping Hindu Dharma alive in such a place. Of course, very beautiful, but if the memory is not kept alive by generations, then it fades away and it dies. So we thank all the Hindus of Fiji for the same. Uh, Coming to that now, of when you kept it alive, and you said you keep saying homeland. So of course you were born in Fiji, and the ancestral home would be Bharat. So that connect, I want to understand. Is it first of all as strong for the youngsters now? You might have felt it because you were still closer to the older generation, or the people who came in, the pioneers who came into Fiji. So is was Bharat always looked up to as the ancestral land for the Hindus? Was it the same for the other religious communities who came as pioneers? Is it the same for Hindus or them? And also, what is the interreligious connection and community relations in Fiji?
Thank you. So for many, let me talk about the young Indo-Fijians. Today express a deep pride in being Hindu through their connection to identity, and it has evolved within a modern multicultural Fiji. So their experience is shaped by a dual sense of belonging, I would say, rooted in the land of their birth, Fiji, and also spiritually tied to their ancestral homeland, which is Bharat. So this layered identity reflects both continuity of tradition and adaptation to a globalized world. So Fiji for young Indo-Fijians is home. So for young Indo-Fijians, Fiji is home. They grow up speaking Fiji Hindi, attending local schools, and participating fully in national life, from sports to business to arts and civil service. So they express patriotism and civic pride, seeing themselves as active contributors to Fiji's growth. So living in a multicultural society also fosters interfaith respect, with Hindu youth also celebrating Diwali and Christmas. So right now, this weekend is the Easter festival here in Fiji. So while it is festival that is commonly celebrated by the Christian community, you will see youngsters and other members of the Hindu community also participating and celebrating the Easter festival as well as the Christmas festival. So they both embrace the Hindu festivals as well as national holidays that are enjoyed in this country. So their bond with Bharat is alive through spiritual teachings, temple rituals, bhajan and Ramayan mandlis, and cultural practices. And you would know exposure to Indian cinema, devotional music, digital media, and YouTube discourses, keeps them connected through Hindu philosophy. And you will know Dhirendra Shastri ji recently visited Fiji, and we had other, priests and saints who have visited this country. So we are connected to India, through spiritual leaders as well. So some of the youngsters and elders have also traveled to India, primarily on pilgrimage or heritage trips, maybe to deepen the understanding of ancestral roots. So, as a modern Hindu generation, the youth take pride in organizing festivals. As I speak this weekend, there are three major, conventions for the Indian communities here in Fiji. So we have the TISI National Convention. We have the National Convention, the 63rd National Convention for Sri Sanatan Dharma Pratinidhi Sabha of Fiji. So where all the Hindus, the North Indian communities, the South Indian communities converge in one location, and they celebrate the rich cultural heritage, that the Indians brought from India, and how they've adapted to the modern lifestyle of Fiji. So, as I've said, as a modern Hindu generation, we take pride in organizing festivals, managing. So the young people will manage the social media, the Facebook page for temples, for example. So in
Wonderful.
that way, they are connected to temple and daily rituals. So they're slowly learning the chants and the mantras. But as I've said, we really need to push them to learn the language so that they do not lose it. Because while they have the spoken ability, what I want to see is they are able to grasp, the reading and writing ability as well.
Comprehension also.
Yes, so
Yeah.
they tend to Hindu values, as I've said in the beginning, karma, dharma, bhakti, for guidance in the fast changing world. They may have been influenced by the Western values, but as I've said, for guidance, they come back to the basic Hindu values, which still lay the foundation. So, and as I've said, we access this on a daily basis through online satsangs, podcast, and your channel, for example. Those who will be watching this will also be connected not only to the Indians in the diaspora, but also to the Hindu values as well. So, and sometimes you will see the young people, they speak out against misrepresentations of Hinduism. They embrace peaceful activism and cultural advocacy as well.
I have seen that in the diaspora Hindus. That diaspora Hindus are very outspoken. When I met Dr. Indraniji, Pandita Indraniji, that's the first thing I noticed about her. Very vocal about being Hindu. And they do speak out. All of you do speak out. And again, thank you for that. Very grateful. And I have learned from that we need to speak out, and it can be a peaceful advocacy, like you said. Coming to you personally again, Salesh ji, have you come to Bharat? Have you made any visit? And if so, what were your impressions? Because there is an idea of a spiritual land, ancestral spiritual land that you connect to, like you said, on a daily basis through your community and rituals. But then when you come here, obviously it's very different unless you go to very, very particular kshetras, which where spirituality may be throbbing, but for the most part, you probably won't see it. So, how was your experience? I'm really curious to know, because seems like Fijian Hindus are really spiritual, connected, community minded, vocal, which seems very ideal to me. And I would love to visit there because I don't see that much in Bharat right now.
Thank you, Kavita ji. Unfortunately, I haven't been to India, but
You
yes,
must come then. You're most welcome to
yes,
Hyderabad. We would love to
it,
welcome
it's
you here.
it, it is one of the countries definitely that I want to visit. But some Indo-Fijian Hindus, including families that I know of, and in my country, and other parts who have migrated from Fiji, but they have traveled from New Zealand and Australia as well. So they have a growing interest in visiting India, but primarily, as I said, for spiritual pilgrimages. And because Bollywood is also connecting, Fiji to India. So while I don't have the specific data on Indo-Fijian participation, but I know, and I've read Facebook posts and I've read the local media, the 2025 Mahakumbh Mela, we
Yeah.
saw Indians from Fiji who visited. So there are some groups or religious councils, for example, they have organized to facilitate such pilgrimages. So such initiatives, what I see, they indicate that there is a sustained and growing interest among Indo-Fijians in connecting with their ancestral roots. Unfortunately, most of us have lost, we cannot trace the roots, because
Going
by the
back.
time we realized we needed to, our great grandparents had passed on, so we did not know the name of the ship that they boarded. We lost what were the names of my great grandparents, so that we could trace the ancestral roots. But nonetheless, as I've said, we want to reconnect with India, because our ancestry is in India. And if we participate and attend Kumbh Mela or other Char
Events like
Dham,
that. Yes.
Varanasi, Ayodhya, for example. It's
Jyotirlingas.
Yes. So during the inauguration of the Ayodhya, the Ram temple, there was a special group that went from Fiji to be part of that event. So you will
Wonderful.
see there is a spiritual connection and understanding of the Sanatan Dharma. So as I've said, for me, these journeys are not simply religious journeys, but it is also to explore the rich tapestry of Indian culture and heritage. And as I've said, I haven't been to India, but definitely I would be visiting very soon. But I see and read India through social media and
Yes.
other
It's
yes,
easier
definitely,
nowadays. Yes, it's
yes,
more
yes.
connecting. But we would love to welcome you, and we pray that that journey happens very soon. Um, So coming to the politics of the nation, Shaleshji, Fiji became independent, like you were mentioning before, in 1970, and unfortunately, A.D. Patelji passed away a year before, but I'm sure he paved the way for it. Since then, it has witnessed a lot of coups, and I remember reading that in school. So in 2000, particularly, there was this coup, and there was a reaction to the Indo-Fijian government. So, what is the situation right now? The current relations between Native Fijians, Indo-Fijians, has the situation improved? What about the Hindu representation in politics? Do you have any current leaders who speak up for the Hindu cause? But from what you're telling me, all the Hindu Fijians are very vocal. So, but otherwise, in politics, what is the scenario like? We would like to know more about that.
Uh, Thank you, Kavita ji. Yes, many people do ask us about the political upheavals, most notably the coups of 1987 and 2000. And because they significantly influence tensions, surrounding Indo-Fijian involvement in governance. So these events basically reflect the complex intersection of ethnicity, identity, and power sharing in a post-colonial Pacific nation that was struggling with its multiracial makeup. As of the 2017 national census, the Indo-Fijians, comprise about 37% of Fiji's population. During the 1960s, we were more than the indigenous population, but due to the coups and the high international emigration, most of the Indians had migrated. The first coup, as many would know, was led by Lieutenant Colonel Sitiveni Rambuka, and then we had the second coup that was led by George Speight, that directly overthrew Mahendra Chaudhry, who was Fiji's first Indo-Fijian prime minister.
Yes.
So this violent event, involving hostage taking and demands for ethnic-based constitutional changes, further deepened the ethnic tensions and weakened the national cohesion, again prompting large-scale Indo-Fijian immigration. So, there was fears that were, rooted in Indo-Fijian life. But I would say, there have been reforms that have taken place to rebuild unity in this country. The 2013 constitution, for example, it abolished the race-based voting, and it guaranteed equal citizenship. So helping Fiji, towards a more, equal society. So Indo-Fijians today, actively contribute to politics, education, business, civil society. So we are very much part of the national identity now. So relations between the Itoke, or the indigenous Fijians, and the Indo-Fijians have significantly improved, I would say. So there is greater inclusion, there is shared identity, and national unity. So while historical tensions remain, especially amongst the older generations, or maybe in the rural areas, I would say Fiji today is a more stable and multiracial democracy, especially among its youths. And we have, notable leaders. The current deputy prime minister is Professor Biman Chand Prasad, who is the leader of the National Federation Party that was founded by A.D. Patelji. So, Fijians and Indo-Fijians, participate equally in the political landscape in this country. So we are a generation of Fijians that is driving change. So when I say Fijians, I'm talking about, every race that is part of this country.
Yes.
So young Itokes and Indo-Fijians, especially, they prioritize education. They prioritize national development over ethnic tensions. So I think that is a good thing for a multiracial country like Fiji. So in terms of representation in political landscape, it has evolved over time. There is no specific Hindu party, but definitely there is an Indian party that that tries to look after the concerns of the entire Indian community. So we have played a key role in shaping the national politics of this country.
So wonderful to hear, and very happy to know that it's peaceful, and obviously everybody wants to move ahead in this day, this age, and it is a country to come to because, as we will talk further regarding tourism and how beautiful the island is. But just before that, is there any museum or any archive that documents the history and the contributions of Indians in Fiji, Shaleshji? Because from
Uh,
what you're telling me, there has been a lot of contribution, and so is there anything like that?
Yes, so there are significant institutions. The main one is the Fiji Museum, which is located in the capital city, Suva. So it features a dedicated Indo-Fijian gallery. So this gallery showcases traditional Indian attire, jewelry, religious artifacts that reflects the cultural heritage of the community when we came in 1879. So this museum also houses, colonial era tools, domestic items, illustrating the Indo-Fijian life during the British period. So whatever, Indo-Fijians brought to Fiji, you'd see the replica or a photo of what, the Indo-Fijians used during that time. And we also have the National Archives of Fiji, where all the immigration passes are held. So it is
Oh,
also here in Suva, in the capital city.
okay.
So it holds wealth of records related to the Indian indenture system. The immigration passes right from 1879 to 1916. So which has personal data about each laborer, including age, caste, and place of origin. So the archives basically, have all the plantation registers, the death records, which talks about the lives and the hardships of Girmityas. In Lautoka, we also have a Girmit Center, which
Oh,
also has a library. I haven't visited this center in a long time, but the Sri Sanatan Pratinidhi Sabha's 63rd annual convention right now, this weekend, is happening at the Girmit Center. So
oh,
that, becomes a space for, Girmitias to come together to share Girmitia experiences. So right now they would be displaying, as I've said, the sugar industry that was part of the Girmitia lifestyle. How Girmitias have contributed to Fiji's economy, how Girmitias have contributed to the cultural and social landscape of this country. So doing this annual convention this weekend, they would be, showing music, clothing, food preparation, religious practices. They will talk about oral history. They'll talk about the personal narratives of Girmitias and the descendants. So I would say these institutions and other, even the temples, some temples also store important Girmitia history. So they become a very vital cultural and educational network that can honor the resilience, the sacrifice, and the achievements of the Indo-Fijian or the Girmitias as a whole. And their legacy continues to be remembered. Girmitia history was also part of the school curriculum. So social sciences, teaches about Girmit history. And it is also celebrated by the present generations and hopefully the future generations of this country.
so it's very well integrated and it's everywhere. And if one chose to visit, we'd be able to know more about Girmitia history through various sources. So it's not just one museum or archive, but it's everywhere. So very happy to know that. Now, coming
Yes.
to the most beautiful part of the island, and Fiji is known to be so beautiful, coral reefs, great biodiversity, etc. So tourism is the biggest industry, I suppose. Do Indo-Fijians work a lot in this sector? And apart from that, tell us more about Fiji, contemporary Fiji, in terms of Indian. You've said Bollywood two or three times. So the influence of Indian cinema, is there any cricket influence? So just was curious to know about the cuisine, all the soft power elements that you can talk about.
Yes, thank you. So primarily, the sugar was supposed to be the backbone of the economy, but now tourism has taken over, and I think that is the trend that is seen worldwide. So Fiji, yes, definitely, like Mauritius, is known for its white sandy beaches, and Table 21, the Bollywood film, for example, was shot here in Fiji as well. So you would see Indian directors and producers also, trying to see if they could, film, bring, Bollywood stars here for their movies, etc. So a couple of movies, I think two or three, have been shot here in Fiji's location. So yes, tourism stands as Fiji's leading industry. It contributes to the national GDP, bringing in a lot of money. And we, every year we welcome international visitors, mainly from Australia, New Zealand, the US, and Canada. And we now also have Indian nationals who visit this country. So the nation's natural beauty, the coral reefs, the marine biodiversity, and renowned hospitality continues to attract global tourists, with tourism which also boosts agriculture, the transportation sector, the retail sector, through its multiplier effect. So as I've said, just as we have contributed to other spaces, Indo-Fijians have also contributed to the tourism ecosystem, in terms of hospitality management, in terms of so most of the hotels that you'll visit here in Fiji, you will be able to experience Indian curries, and that flavorful cuisine. you know uh, uh, in the early days, we could not access all the spices that you would enjoy back in India, but now because of trade, we are able to get those. But whatever we could do, embracing that deep cultural cuisine that we our ancestors enjoyed back in India, we enjoy it here today. The hotels will offer the flavorful Indian cuisine as well. So the tourism sector, as I've said, Indians are very much part of this, and contributing to the national economy in many ways. Bollywood, as I've said, that is one way that is keeping India alive, especially in the younger generation. They may not speak fluently the standard Hindi, but
Yeah.
definitely they have passive knowledge of standard Hindi.
Of
They
the
understand Bollywood
Bollywood.
cinema. Yes, Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan ji, and everybody, So we talk about these Indian, actors and actresses. If they are part of our household, they are a family or a friend. So if somebody in the film industry dies or passes away, we feel, that somebody from our own have moved on. So as I've said, the Indian cinema, influences us. That our fashion, for example, is influenced by Bollywood. So we have evolved as a vibrant fusion, I would say, of Indian traditions as well as the Pacific and the Fijian influences. And as I said, while we love to maintain the Indian identity, as I've said, we have this specific flavor, which shares our history, our community resilience, and our creative adaptation. Just like Lord Rama, 14 years of exile. Our ancestors who toiled, through hardships, but they've said, if Lord Rama can survive 14 years of exile, we would also struggle, but make a good livelihood for our children. And I think I owe this to our ancestors who,
Yes,
despite all the struggles, have made us what we are today. And I'm
absolutely.
happy, from cinema to sports to music, we have contributed to all aspects of the distinctive Fijian flavor.
So wonderful and so grateful. But coming to sports, you did talk about Bollywood, you did talk about other tourism industry. So is cricket, I don't see a Fijian cricket team like the Caribbean. And is cricket not as popular? Do you play any other sport? And if so, what?
Yes, many people, think because they are Indians here in Fiji, so cricket should be our number
Yes.
one sport. Well,
Yes.
thanks to television, now we can access international matches, and because India is playing against New Zealand, so by default we will cheer for India, and that is
Thank
our national team. But
you.
for Indo-Fijians in this country, soccer is
Mm.
our main sport. So the
Okay.
the Fiji Football Association, started by the Indian community here. So while there are certain groups which play cricket, but cricket is not our sport. Rugby is our national sport, but you wouldn't see participation of Indo-Fijians in rugby. So going back to soccer, so soccer is the undisputed heart of the Indians in this country. So every year we would have three major tournaments which will bring teams from the major districts in Fiji, which is called the Fiji Fact tournament, the Battle of the Giants tournament, and inter-district championship. So you will see districts from around Fiji would participate. So it becomes an annual event where Indians and other loyal fans will come together. So so soccer used to and to date energizes the whole community. Unfortunately, yes, we don't play cricket as an active sport, but whenever India plays, we are cheering for India, Kavita.
Okay, thank you.
We had
Thank you for
notable
that.
athletes like Roy Krishna, who is playing for one of the South Indian teams. So he's an international footballer and a
Huh.
global Indo-Fijian icon who he played for New Zealand football team, and he also is playing for one of the Indian teams. I can't remember the name. And Vijay Singh has also earned
Ah,
a name in golf. So,
yes.
they continue to inspire other Indo-Fijians in sports. But you will see, as I have said, Indo-Fijian children or households would prioritize education and not so sports. So therefore, you wouldn't see many Indo-Fijians in the sporting arena. But We may not be active players, but we are active spectators and active supporters of any sporting
Cheerleaders.
activity. Cheerleaders,
Wonderful.
yes, yes.
So we were in India too. Previously, we were not as much into sports apart from cricket. As you've seen, chess is a big thing now. It was invented in India, or now it's caught on again. And sports has caught on big time, whether it's states, people from Manipur, sports people, or from Haryana. So sports has really caught on the past few years, also with the encouragement of the government. So I'm hoping that maybe the Fijian Indians also get that, sense that, and get more into sports. Typically Indian parents will not prioritize sports over education. It's the other way around, you're right, but things are changing. So coming to the youngsters, then one last question, Shailesh ji, is it easy for youngsters to find partners? Because previously it was arranged matches in India, and I'm sure it was similar maybe in Fiji also. But to find other Hindus, other partners, how easy it is, and do they look for diaspora Hindus among them, or is it easy to find partners in India, or are they marrying less and less, as it happens in India also? So, what is the scenario?
Yeah, so for Indo-Fijians here in this country, especially the Hindus, so finding life partners from India is not common. There have been some, who had, Indian scholarships. So if they are studying in India, they would find a partner, and then
Hmm.
and they'll bring their wives back home. So I've heard stories of that. But so there is, finding partners from homeland India is not common. So majority of the Indo-Fijians in this country would marry within their own communities who share the common language, religious practices, and family networks. So, and I think these local connections become more practical and familiar in terms of matchmaking. Uh, in terms of interracial marriages, again, it has happened, but it is not so common. As I've said, parents especially would encourage the young ones to marry within the community, and I think mainly for religious
Definitely is
reasons.
more practical. Yes, sorry
Yes,
to
yes,
interrupt.
and
Yes.
cultural reasons as well.
Yes.
Inter-diaspora marriages are not very common, but yes, now because our family and friends have migrated to Australia and New Zealand, so you would see some inter-diaspora marriages as well with Indo-Fijians living in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or US. But as I've said, marriages within the community is common, and for reasons that we, as I've said, uh, 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 because they want to continue with their family,
Yes.
bloodline, their religious practices, and culture. And for us, wedding is not simply a private function; it is a community
Yes.
event. So
Absolutely.
sometimes you will see distant relatives and friends attending the function, and you may not have seen them your entire life. But as I've said, it is enjoyed by the whole community. So marriage for us is a very sacred institution. So for us, family and marriage are two important institutions, that we celebrate. And I think that we share appreciation for Hindu values by embracing, the different, diversities that, that exist when, marriages take place. But as
Yes.
I've said, many parents, if I talk about Sanatani parents, for example, they want to marry within the same, community group. But I see with the young people, there is some openness. They value personal, compatibility as well with the younger generation. There were times where arranged marriages were very common, but now we also allow, you can find your partner. But yes, we want to see that, you share common, values, education systems, over strict traditional boundaries. Yes.
So something very similar to what's happening here. What would you say, Salesh ji, before you go, is the best way for pioneers, Girmitia pioneers from Fiji and Indian Hindus to have a better connect, to have better relationships? How do we make this happen? I know you said more and more people are coming, maybe for Mahakumbh and such yatras, and some Indians are coming to Fiji as tourists. What more can be done, or do you have any ideas? What could you tell us about it?
Thank you. So, in terms of the question of how Girmitia descendants and Bharatiyas or Indians from India, can reconnect, it's not just cultural; it's deeply emotional, spiritual, and historical. So, those separated by oceans and time, like they said, they crossed the Kalapani, to come to Fiji. But both communities are branches of the same ancient tree, which is rooted in Bharat and Sanatan Dharma. So true reconnection lies not in claiming who is more Indian, but I think in embracing mutual respect, shared storytelling, and heartfelt curiosity. So sometimes I would advise, the first step is to listen without assumption. So Girmitya descendants, for example, they've preserved their Hindu rituals, Ramayan traditions, and Bhojpuri heritage through adversity and isolation. So while Bharatiyas in India have lived through India's independence, urbanization, and global modernization. So I think, understanding each other's journeys would definitely build empathy and bridge the false hierarchies that may exist. So I think storytelling is a powerful tool, and I think Narendra Modi ji has announced. I think they are trying to see that how can they reconnect the diaspora countries, through their cultural and ancestral roots. So I think that is a good way. And the Indian government scholarships, the cultural and spiritual retreats that happen, the scholarship exchanges that happen between the two countries through the High Commission of India, through youth exchanges. I think Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, for example, and in No India program, for example, KIP. So those are some of the platforms that would continue to see that we are reconnecting not only Indians, but we are making connections in terms of bhakti, language,
Yes.
music, food, and whatever, tries to unite the two communities across generations and across the oceans. Yes. And technology now, definitely we
Yes.
need to use it as
Helps.
a transformative force. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your eloquence and your depth of knowledge, Shaleshji. We hope to have you back on this platform, and I can also look at various other areas and forums where you could perhaps speak, because you speak so beautifully and have so much knowledge, and you represent Fiji wonderfully. Thank you for all that you've shared with us, and we hope to make a deeper connection and to welcome you to Bharat whenever that happens, hopefully soon. As they say in all the diaspora countries, Ram Ram.
Ram Ram, Kavita ji, and thank you for the opportunity that you have provided so I could share about my country, the Hindus and the Indians in this country. Thank you.
धन्यवाद जी नमस्कार
Dhanyavad.